Merhaba herkese.
Hello everyone, welcome. First of all, I will start by correcting something. Kevser Üstünda was going to be with us as a moderator. Unfortunately, due to a health problem, she couldn't be here. I'll be moderating this session. I'm a little excited and I'm very happy to have you here for a session which brings if you need interpretation, you can take your headsets. So I will start by introducing our session. We're going to talk about City of Cars, and we're going to talk about cities which are planned, designed for cars, and we're still shaping our cities according to the needs of cars. I'm Görsev from Marmara Municipalities Union, and since 2022 we're running a program with Superpool and GDCI, and we're trying to transform streets with our member municipalities. We first hold a rehearsal, we observe if people want this, and we also try to answer the questions like where are we going to walk, where are we going to go, but then we direct our attention to how am I going to park my car. So I'm working in an organization which was established in 1975, and this is the 50th year in our archive work. We found a study at the end of 1970s. They started trying transformation, and they started to think about how can we live in cities without cars. And Marmara Municipalities Union tried this for one day. Like they closed Istiklal Street for one day. That closed to car traffic. And we're also asking this question, like, is there any progress so far? So can we try this again? And now these city centers, some of the city centers are only for pedestrians, and now we cannot think of Istiklal Street with cars. So can we, is it possible to have a fair distribution for cars and pedestrians? So now we will hear it from our panelists, from our speakers, and we try to choose our speakers from different geographies, and they are working in different fields, and this is how we planned our session. I'm going to introduce our speakers. Leon Steinberg is sitting next to me. He is a urban planner and co-founder of Humankind. He's working on human-centered cities, cities for people, and he's an advocate for public space. And he's also working on innovative solutions for people and inclusion of urbanites. Paul Lagarde, He is working as senior urbanist in Institute Paris Region, strategic planning and big transformation projects. And in Paris Metropolitan, he runs the projects and metrics from roads to streets group. He's heading this group and metropolitan environment projects. And next to him is Shreya Gadapalli from India. She's an expert in urban mobility. She's the founder and managing trustee of Urban Works Institute. And she started a big transformation process. She has worked on different projects. And today, we will talk about India's policy, like carrying not cars but people. And we have Utku Jihan with us, mayor of Hoppa, and he is an urban planner. And it's great to have a mayor who is an urban planner. And before Hoppa, he worked in Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, Transportation Department, and what he did really shaped a city. And he's also the president of Mobility in Marmara Municipalities Union, and he is one of the founding members of many NGOs. Welcome. Now I would like to give the floor to Lior. He will talk about cities for people.
Understand?
To stand.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. Hey, so thanks. We had an agreement that we are allowed to stand, right? Hey, so thanks a lot for joining this session. I want to start with a question, like, who has come here today by walking? See, just walking, just walking. No. And by a car? All right. And public transportation? That's nice. And with a unicorn? Nobody? I get it. Now, the reason I'm asking is because, we did this nice project. I talked about it in a previous session with children where we asked them how they imagine their city. And I particularly love this image by Amelia from France. And she wrote, my dream street has lots of kids running around and playing, and they don't have to be scared because there are no cars on our streets. And mommy and daddy go to work on unicorns. And I bike to the kindergarten. Go to work with unicorns. That's crazy, right? But if you would go to those people in 1880s in Galata Bridge, and you will tell them that soon, within a decade or two, there will come a metal box that can go 100 kilometers per hour with burning fuel, they will think you're crazy, just like the unicorn. And yet, around 20 years later, 30 years later, the first car started to appear. And I want to remember that time because some of us, at least myself, have still grandparents that tell them the story about the first car coming to the village. You know this, we remember there were no cars and then the first car arrived. And I like this image, and I always, whoever city I go to, I'm looking for those kind of images. Because in that moment, the car was something new. It promised something, but it was mostly sort of a guest, right? It was something, it was alone there, surrounded by other modes of transportation, and it had to somehow navigate its way between all the other traffic. And we all know what happened later. How did we get from a guest to basically the landlord, the owner of our space, and the one that will build everything for them? Imagine, like a guest is coming to your house, he's super kind, with flowers, and within few minutes, you're realizing he's your landlord. You need to change the entire house to fit them. And he's also bringing tons of friends with him. And whenever there is no space, you need to provide him more space. That's terrible. So how did we get from this guest to a landlord? I always like to draw it in these circles, the biggest trap our cities are built on. Because Istanbul was existing for hundreds and hundreds of years before the car arrived, or even more than thousands of years before the car arrived, but within 40, 50 years it completely changed because of it. So how it happened? Basically, cars offer freedom. They let us go really fast to really further distances. So when you're the only car, like that guest car on that bridge, you are the winner because you are faster than anyone and you can get anywhere you want. But this leads more people to buy cars, of course, because they see, hey, that looks great, the economy is getting better, we get more money, we buy more cars. So there is more congestion because everybody is on the car. So we need to build more roads, right? And this offers more freedom. This is like very stupid because every time we're keeping building more roads or building more neighborhoods that are only intended for people to live in them and coming with a car to the city, we're just repeating the same mistakes. And Albert Einstein said that doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results is it's the definition of insanity. So I think that we need to look at this one arrow. From increased congestion, there is a lot of congestion. We are building more roads, trying to fit more cars in our city, and ask ourselves, what are we doing there? What is the mistake we're doing there? Are we keeping feeding that new landlord that we have? Or are we going to act again to the car as a guest? And the reason I'm saying the car as a guest is not only like a metaphor. I think it can be a really new planning philosophy that we can use when we are designing our streets. And I want to give you an example from Utrecht. This is a street in Utrecht, the fourth largest city of the Netherlands, probably the size of a small neighborhood in Istanbul, like 300,000 people. And in the 70s, most of the streets looked like this, quite busy. And this is how the street looks now today. It's a bicycle street. And you can see the difference is exactly the same location, but different times. And the nice thing about bicycle street is that the bicycles are in the centers, they are allowed to go however they want, but also cars are allowed. And they're not allowed to overtake the bicycles, they're not allowed to make you stress, they're allowed to go there, but they're not allowed to stress you as a cyclist. And in the beginning of this street, there is a legal framework. It's called Fietsstraat, Auto te Gast. The bicycle street, car is a guest. That's like the legal framework. The car is the guest. And this is a street that you have in every city, several few streets like those. You have a similar version for pedestrians, but I like this example because it's clearly stating that a car legally is a guest. It's allowed to come, but not allowed to take over the party. So I will finish here by suggesting, and we can later discuss on more examples, is that if we are making now decisions about parking, about street design, about building new neighborhoods, about building new buildings, let's try to always put the car as the guest mobility and the other modes as more the guest of the party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lior. Teşekkürler. Çok güzel.
Thank you very much. This was a very nice presentation. Cars are guests, that's what you said. I think, well, actually I said to myself, being a guest could be a bit exaggerated in Turkey. Now, let's move on to Paul Lecroix. And he's going to talk about turning cars or the areas that cars use into green boulevards.
Thank you very much for being here and for inviting me here. I'll be talking about the experience of the Paris region, actually focusing more on Paris city and not on the region because I've been told I haven't got much time. This is the 20th century paradigm. As Leo said, I'm just putting other pictures under the same debate. This is what we've done of our cities, but you feel that this highway is full, but it's full of empty cars. And that's really a main focus today. We are working on the regional mobility plan, is get more people in their cars and less cars on the roads. And as Leo mentioned, the more highways you get, the more traffic you get. That's really this evidence based on this. If you compare London to Paris, London is not a super case, but London did fight its highway plans in the 60s, and so today there is mainly a big highway circling the city, but there are no highways within the city, or not as many as in the Paris case. As you can see on this, I don't know, this is the peripheric, so we have 3 ring roads actually now. This one is completed, and this one also is another ring road, like Istanbul. And we have, because these ring roads and these highway bring the traffic right in the center of the metropolitan area, where there are about 7 million people living, we have 3 times more traffic than in London in that area. So it really makes you understand that roads induce traffic. It's not traffic that induces roads. Or it can work the other way too. Just to say that cars, of course, we all know, are not the most efficient way of traveling within our cities, because they take a lot of space. They take 8 times as much space as a bicycle. And as you can see on this chart to the left, which is comes from the North American Cities and Transit Authorities, the capacity of roads is much higher if you put public transport first, or even if you put pedestrian first, or bicycle first. So we really need to change the mental framework of the decision makers so that they can understand that. And this is starting to happen in the Paris region. We are already working on a transit-oriented city, and also, that's me pushing, a bike-oriented and a pedestrian-oriented city. And we are currently building a 200-kilometer metro system around Paris with 5 new metro lines, but there's also a regional express line and lots of metro extension and tramways. So we figure out that by 2035, we'll have a lot of alternatives to cars at the scale of the metropolitan area. Now, looking at central Paris, here you have the situation at the top, where the main axis, or main east-west axis in central Paris, the Rue de Rivoli, which goes near the Louvre that you can see there, was mainly for cars, 25,000 cars a day. In 2019, there was, 2020, after the COVID, there was a major step made by the city of Paris to get rid of the cars altogether, except for taxis and delivery vehicles and buses, of course. And all this is the space for bicycles on both ways. And now we have 18,000 cyclists a day, and we think we will overcome the car traffic that we used to have. So it's really changing rapidly. And since 2001 in Paris, we've multiplied by 5 kilometers of bike infrastructure. You can see on this map here. And we've got rid of 50% of street parking. This is extremely important. We have we've got rid of about 115,000 car parkings on the streets. But we've provided, and I think Shreya will be talking about that later, we've provided parking for delivery vehicles, for people in need, like nurses or doctors, or people with handicaps. So we've increased, in fact, the capacity of parking for them, and also, of course, for bicycles. We are currently building 130,000 bike parkings. And this, of course, accounts for a 60% decrease in car use in the city of Paris over the last 20 years. And this is the kind of bike boulevards we have in Paris, but also at the metropolitan scale. You can see these images. Now the bike lanes are getting more and wider and wider. Now we are over 2 meters for one direction, so that's 4 meters. So we're not quite the Netherlands yet, but maybe we will reach it. And we are building a regional network of bike lanes, which will resemble the public transport network. And we are also building these new bike facilities. This one is 700 bikes at the Gare du Nord in Paris. It's not as big as Utrecht. Utrecht has got 20,000 or 23,000 bike parkings at the station, but we are moving on. We are also working on pedestrianization of main plazas. We've redesigned 10 plazas actually in the last 10 years. This is the Place de la République, main plaza in Paris. You can see that the cars are going in all directions all around the plaza. And if you look at what it is today, the cars are just on one side, and the pedestrians have got access to all this space. But we are also working on children's streets programs and school streets, and we are currently redesigning 200 streets for kids. It's quite simple. You just close the road, put some planting. Sometimes, in some cases, you redo the paving, but that's something you can do quite cheaply and quickly. So, and there's a very strong support by the communities, and that's even political opponents don't fight on that. And what we've been doing also, but you maybe heard it earlier on in another presentation, we've been working on the riverbanks and suppressing the cars. We had about 65,000 cars a day on both sides of the river, and now it's pedestrians, and the traffic disappeared. And we can talk about induced traffic and disinduced traffic. When if you look at this chart, this is the total figure of traffic per hour on the whole axis, and now we are down there because we still have traffic on the upper banks of the river. And this is the results of some research I've been doing in the last 15 years in different cities over the world on what happens when you transform a highway, reduce capacity for cars, and that means that you open capacities for all the other needs of the city, which are not just only about traffic and mobility, but can be other uses. And in all cases, you've got this traffic disappearances because people change their behavior. I mean, it's like the economy. The demand creates the offer. And in this case, when you reduce the offer, you reduce also the demand. But we can talk about that later. And all this material is available online. So you can go on our website, and the program is called From Expressways to Boulevards, and you can read out some of it. And in 2018, we organized a metropolitan competition of ideas on how to rethink our highway network from now to 2050. And what was really good is that we got around the table the mayors, the presidents of intermunicipal authorities, the Métropole du Grand Paris, and the region, and also the national government. So it was really great having everybody around the table, and it was a great success. We had some bold proposals of some teams. Actually, we suggested some ideas to some teams. It's a way of passing through ideas between different organizations. And in this image on the right, you can see that within the Paris orbital highway, all the rest could gradually be transformed into first slow highways and then boulevards. And this is an image of the peripheric. This is what it looks like today. And it's quite an ugly place and a really terrible place to live. There are about 500,000 people living around the Périphérique, the first ring road of Paris. And this is one of the visuals from the team. You don't recognize the place, do you? But there it is. And the idea really is not only to transform the highway, but to green it and to manage. Here it's very easy because there used to be a street here. And the Périphérique is at level. So very simply, we can reconnect both sides of the highway. And that's all for me for now. And you can ask any questions later in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. You remind us that we are always like expecting behavior change first, and then the change happens in the city. But sometimes it's otherwise. First
sometimes it goes the other way.
And then it changes the behavior. So right now we are going with Shreya. Shreya will talk about the one and only thing that that we love a lot: car parking.
Exactly. So, can I have my presentation on the screen? Excellent.
And it's Turkish.
Yeah, and it's in Turkish. Merhaba. This is my first time in Turkey, and I'm loving it. Thank you for being such a warm host. So, what I tried to do today is to translate my entire presentation into Turkish, assuming that a lot of you are from Turkey, and probably it will be useful. So, what is my presentation about? It's about insanlar için şehir tasarlamak, right? Designing cities for people. Now, I'll ask a question. How many of you have heard the term common sense? Common sense, right? Everybody has heard the term common sense. But I'll tell you something. Common sense is very uncommon. That's the first thing that we tell people, right? Don't you have common sense? Right? Common sense is very uncommon. What we have more commonly is nonsense. Right? And my presentation today is exactly that. It is uncommon sense and a lot of nonsense. Right? Common nonsense. Designing cities for people, common, uncommon sense, and common nonsense. Now, what do you see there? It's a sunrise. And I have a question for you. Where did the sun rise from this morning? Was it the east or the west? How many go for east? How many go for the west? Foolish question, right? Sun did not rise in the west. Yanlish. Because the sun did not rise, the earth went around. Right? The earth went around. And so what that tells us is that not everything that we see with our eyes is actually true. And two, if you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. Right? If you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. And that's what my presentation is about, because parking is often misunderstood of how we'll solve parking. Is parking a problem in your city? If it's yes, raise your hand. In every city, we have a parking problem, right? And so this presentation is about parking it right. How do you park it right? Now, what are streets for? And I'd say streets are first for traveling across the city, but they're equally important for walking and enjoying the city, right? That's what streets are. But then comes parking. Parking starts clogging the streets. They're on the sidewalk, but not just the sidewalk, they're also on the street. So everything is clogged. And we don't have space for moving the traffic. Walking is a nightmare, right? Impossible to walk. And there isn't even space for parking because everything is full with parking, right? If somebody else wants to come and park, there's no space for parking. So what is the solution? What is the solution? The solution is to remove parked vehicles from the street to off-street parking, right? So that you clear the street, reclaim the street, so that we can have excellent mobility and happy people. Now, what is the solution then? The solution, we think, is more off-street parking, right? Building more parking in buildings, right? Because if all this parking has to go somewhere, we need to build parking. And I say, Yanlish. That's wrong. Doesn't make any sense. Why? In our building bylaws, we say we need to build a minimum amount of parking within buildings, right? We say in a building, if you're building 1,000 square meters, then you need to build these many parking slots. But that hasn't stopped parking on the roads. We go ahead and build parking structures, right? Autopark.
Yeah.
And they are empty because who will park in an auto park when it's easy and free to park on the road? Right? Everybody wants to park on the road. So, what do we need to do? We need to first start managing parking on the street. Right? We need to start managing parking on the street. A mess that we have there needs to be converted to this. And we have 3 steps, which is first, demarcate, 2, charge a fee, and 3, enforce the law, right? Unless we do these 3 things, we'll not be able to solve the parking problem. Demarcate, charge a fee, enforce the law. Second question, who should be building parking? And the immediate answer is, of course, the municipality should be building the parking. Wrong. Imagine you go and buy an air conditioner, an aircon, and you go to the government and say, government, I bought an air conditioner, give me a house to fix this in. Government, I bought an air conditioner, please give me a house to fix this in. Sounds funny, right? Hilarious. But that's exactly what we do with parking. We go buy a car and say, government, please give a house to put my car. That's parking. And I want 3 parking. I want it at my house, I want it at my office, I want it at the mall, everywhere, right? 3 car parking spots per car. That's how foolish it is. Parking is not a birthright. It's a commodity. It's a commodity and it has a price. So what should the government be doing? Should it be building housing for the cars of the rich? Or should it be building the housing for the poor? How many say housing for the poor? How many say housing for the cars of the rich? So it's meaningless because it costs the same amount of space, 25 square meters, and the same amount of money to build a house for a poor family or a house for a car, right? So our priorities are wrong. 2, for using public transport, we think parking is necessary. We need to build parking next to a metro station so that we go park and use a metro. Nobody does that, right? It's wrong. What should be the resources spent on? Should it be spent on building a car park with 250 cars? Or should it be spent instead on 15 buses that can carry 10,000 people? Right? Those are really the options before us. Same amount of money, 15 buses for 10,000 people or 250 cars. So if we want more people on public transport, obviously we should be getting the buses, not the cars. Parking is essentially like a magnet, It attracts traffic. So the more the amount of parking, the more the amount of traffic. So if we want more traffic, we should build more parking. But if we want less traffic, we should be building less parking. The goal of parking management right now is completely off. It's the wrong priority. we think we need to keep building parking to accommodate unending demand for parking. That's the wrong approach. What we should be doing instead is to start raising the price of parking on streets, increase the price of parking on streets, so that parking becomes a private sector financial business, a viable business for the private sector to build parking. It's a real estate. Parking is real estate, nothing else. If we want a house, we have to pay for rent for it or buy it. If car wants a house, it needs to also pay for it. And what do? You start marking on the streets where there is the highest amount of parking. And parking oftentimes is not everywhere. It's in spots of high demand, right? So in some spots, like those red spots, there's very high demand. In the orange, there's a little less demand. In the yellow, a little less. In the green, maybe very little demand. So start mapping parking demand and set prices based on demand. The higher the demand, the higher the price. So in the highest demand, maybe what it should be is 200 Turkish lira. I'm just making a number here, but something like that. In the next level, which is yellow, it might be 100 Turkish liras. And maybe in the green, it's free because there is ample parking there. So that what it does is to redistribute parking, right? Rather than having a lot of parking in one spot, in the red spots. And regularly revise parking based on demand. If the demand is more than 90% of the supply, increase the price by 50%. So if the demand, even in the high demand area, is more than 90%, increase the price from 200 lira to 300 lira. But if the demand is less than 70% of the supply, decrease the price, decrease it by 20%. So that you have demand responsive prices for parking. And last, we are in a weird world where we create we limit the amount of space for human beings. We say you can build only so much in a plot of land for human beings, but we allow unlimited amount of parking to be built in the basements. How about we limit the amount of parking and allow unlimited space for human beings, for insan, right? So let's create parks for children, not parking for cars. And that's what we've been doing in India, right? This was the heart of the city I live in Chennai, which is the same size as Istanbul. It's about 12 million people. And India, incidentally, has so many people. They have 6 cities which have more than 10 million people. But this is not what it looks like now, because we started experimenting with the city and the police and the shopkeepers to just test it out, just by putting barricades and plants to try out how it feels like if there was no traffic and no parking, primarily no parking. And the business started booming. And finally, the businessmen said, let's transform it. And this is what it looks like now. You have wide footpaths and very little carriageway. And this is not just one street. I've been working with Indian cities, and there are hundreds of kilometers of streets which have been transformed like this, right? And I'm also working with the national government to help cities to fund it, to set the right policy, to make these kinds of streets happen. But one of the key requirements by the national government now is that cities need to start charging for parking and not building parking. That's what the Indian government has sent out, a circular to all the states and cities in India, part of my work. And when you do something like this, we have happy people, right? And I say, the depth of democracy is measured by the width of our sidewalk. The depth of democracy is measured by the width of our sidewalk. That's parking demystified. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreya, for this inspirational speech. I think there are lots of things to think about. Car parking, like everyone's asking, even if they don't have cars, they are still asking like where to put the cars if I will have a car. Where I will put it. Çok teşekkürler. Şimdi Utku Başkan'a geçeceğiz.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to give the floor to Utku, Mayor Utku. Now I think it's time to approach issues from the perspective of decision maker. Well, events like this have the following problem. Most of the people who attend events like this one try to reverse the picture. These are the kind of people who do their best for the people, not for the cars, not for the love of cars. And we keep asking the same question. How can we realize this? Where should be the point, the starting point? Now that we have a decision maker with us, I'd like to ask that question. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for bringing us together, the Marmara Union of Municipalities. And I'd like to say get well soon to Professor Keser. Why am I here? Well, I'm here to summarize why the things that have been explained so far is not possible in Turkey. Well, I was a decision maker in the transport of Istanbul for 4 or 5 years, and prior to Istanbul, I worked in Izmir and in charge of transport again. Now, in the Union of Municipalities, my role is the same. I visit all the cities in Turkey and I try to understand what the vision is. So for the past 15 to 20 years, I personally witnessed the transformation of transport. And we have been trying to make sure that there is some advancement made in transport. Our cities are not only Istanbul, Izmir, I mean all of the cities in Turkey are designed for private cars. So the crucial point is to be able to change this. We have to make sure that we manage car parks, increase the capacity of public transportation, increase sustainable transport. I think these are all ways for achieving livable cities. There was a question that you asked, have we not made any progress? No progress in awareness. Well, there is some progress. We used to talk about transport back in 20 years ago. Back in 1950s, there was a model first designed in the US that focused on the movement of cars. The urban planning was based on this. Our urban planning was based on this. Since 20 years ago, in many cities of Europe, sustainable urban mobility was discovered here in Turkey as well, and we started to discuss that. In sustainable urban mobility plans in Istanbul, in Izmir, these were completed in 2020. Istanbul is the first to achieve this, and you can get a copy of this at the booth of Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality just outside the hall. Well, the plan focuses on the mobility of people, not cars. So not the mobility of people, sustainability, being nature-based. So these are all the pathways that we have defined for ourselves. The sustainable urban mobility plans are being developed for many cities. We work with our European counterparts and also the Union of Municipalities of Marmara. So professionals, different decision makers now discuss the mobility of pedestrians rather than cars. We see many examples of this. Are we at a point that we desire to be at? No. But we made some progress in the last 15 to 20 years. Municipalities attach more importance to nature, to cyclists, and green areas. What do we do? Now we have more spaces for pedestrians. The fees that you pay for parking areas are much more expensive in the city center. Well, this also corresponds to what we call demand management. Okay, we had new maritime lines, new public transport solutions, but we have to also take the measures to be able to reduce the amount of traffic in the city center. While I was in the administration of Istanbul, we worked on this. They still do that. It's important to make sure that traffic is no longer in the city center, but is moved to the outer skirts of the outskirts of the city. We have to make sure that private car owners are discouraged to travel to the city center through different means. And we have to offer new ways, increase public transportation or rail transport. And it has to be comfortable, it has to be cheap, it has to be accessible. So it should be preferred. People should start to prefer it. Because of the time constraints, I'm speaking a bit too fast, by the way. These are the policies that we already implement in Istanbul, but we don't have a magic wand. It's a city that has been designed for cars for many years, so it's not easy to make that transformation so fast. You know Laleli, the neighborhood Laleli here, or the street here. Somebody should talk about that. The pedestrianization in Laleli is a great example. So we have examples also in Istanbul, not only in Europe. Based on the surveys, the level of satisfaction there is as high as 98%. This is the positive response rate of the shop owners in Laleli. So pedestrianization in the city center, that's a very good example. Or Princess Islands, the Beşiktaş Square, other squares in Istanbul. These are just examples of pedestrianization. What do we do in Beşiktaş? Remember there was a pass, not an underpass, just the opposite. Think about the opposite. We knocked it down. This was taken to court. This overpass was taken to court because I knocked it down. We're still fighting hard to make sure that those squares become people's places. In Izmir, we have other examples of trying to increase the space for pedestrians. We have made progress. We have good examples. Well, pedestrians, cyclists, so sustainable solutions. We have to increase mobility, and that's very important. That's why sustainable urban mobility plans are there. However, we have started to discuss whether we like cars or not. Yes, I raised my hand. I said I came here by my private car. There are places where we would go for our cars and where we would opt for public transport. I think accessibility has started to become part of our daily lives. We should talk about it now and then maybe continue with questions, answering the questions. I think accessibility is more important than mobility. People's needs, people having access to the means available to them, this is more important. Traveling from one point to another in Istanbul is not important, but within 15 minutes or half an hour through sustainable transport means, by cycling, by public transport, I should have access to a healthcare center, to a market, you name it. So we should rather talk about how we should design cities, urban areas. So far we have designed cities for cars, but from now on we should start to design cities for people. That's why 15-minute cities or half an hour cities are on our agendas. I think there was an earthquake, a small earthquake. And we have to build resilient cities. Yes, we have to build resilient cities. So let's put aside cars. How are we going to transform cities? So accessibility should be discussed more. we should start to discuss other alternatives. So, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Your ideas shook us all.
Şöyle, şu anda bir problem yok diye düşünüyorum ve
I will carry on. There's no problem. But actually, our time finished. So I will ask if you have any questions. Turgut Bey. Hello.
Yoksa Türkçe mi sorayım? English, all right. So as we have like a perfect balance of people who have both worked in the global north and the global south right here on the stage, I would like to maybe emphasize a certain difference that has struck me when I compare countries from the global north and the global south. So what strikes me is that personal automobile ownership or cars in general really have a different image in countries which have an entirely different experience of modernity compared to the global north, right? So, for example, here in Turkey, they are often seen like, of course, this is something that is present in the West as well, but still it makes itself more felt here. So here, cars are usually seen as status symbols, like symbols of masculinity and like tools to exercise power over the other, right? Even like you can see this in individual use where like antisocial behavior concerning cars is much more common here in Turkey. And you can also see this like on a broader sense where what we talk about the most is like the fancy vehicle collection of a big mafia boss or like the big black jeeps, the convoys full of big black jeeps of politicians, you know, whatever. So these are all like tools to exercise power, tools that give you status, right? So I firmly believe that to defeat the dominance of the private automobile, we should be employing more than like just spatial solutions or financial solutions. We should be attacking the image of the car. I would like to ask the opinions about if you have any. Thank you.
You? Okay.
Okay. Absolutely, right? You know, so the issues that Turkey or Istanbul deals with and the issue that we deal with in India, whether it's Bombay or Chennai or Delhi, are similar, right? And are more similar than the issues that, say, a Paris or a New York or a London deals with, to some extent. And you're very right that car is seen as a status symbol. And you know, this morning when we had a session on tactical urbanism, you know, one of the first things that I said is in that meeting that we oftentimes think that the problem is a technical problem, but the problem is not a technical problem. The problem is a communication problem. The problem is about how we imagine, you know, different modes of mobility. Right, when you type about buses in India, the first 10 pieces of news would be, oh, this bus broke down here, something else happened. So buses suck. That's the image that buses have. But when you talk about cars, you have this whole imagination of a wonderful future. So I think we need to start sort of reimagining what that means in the minds of, right from the children, of saying, what are cars, and what are buses instead? What should we have? Like, you know, that image that Lior had shown about what is the imagination of children, and when can we broadcast this through the media in a bigger fashion? So a big part of the success of what I've managed to do in India has been primarily because of engaging with the media and changing the narrative about mobility through the media. Right? When one of the cities that we were working in wanted to put big barriers in the center of the road to stop people from crossing, we went to all the schools with the media and asked the children how it will be for you. And the next day in the morning, every newspaper put it out saying, this city is going to make the streets miserable for kids, right? And when every newspaper says that, what do you think the mayor is going to say? The mayor is going to say, I've got to do something about it, otherwise I'm going to lose my election. And what did they start doing? They started painting zebra crossings across the city because the mayor wanted to win the election. That's what we need to do. Engage with the media, change the narrative through the media, and win the war against the car.
Thank you. Do you want to add something? Bir şeyler eklemek ister misiniz? Or maybe.
I think Shreya said everything, yes.
Başka sorumuz var mı? O zaman sorumuz yoksa ben son bir şeyi sorarak...
If there are no more questions,
Okay, last question. Paul, are you in translation right now? Buradan çıkınca...
okay, when we leave this room, if we want this change to take place, and if it is the common sense, what should we start with? What do you recommend? And so we should not just have single examples, but what are the general steps? I know it's a very general question, but what's your one takeaway?
I think I've been to Istanbul already a few years ago, and I was amazed by the amount of car-free space. It's not that you're just starting, right? You're already doing, as well already said. But I think you are so lucky that you have such amazing metro system and amazing public transportation. I would say pedestrianize, close neighborhoods completely off for cars directly. Let the angry people be angry and enjoy. I mean, you have already the pedestrian traffic, so you can start.
Sonra mahkemelere gitmek gerekiyor. Thank you, Lior. And Paul?
Well, I really think that in Istanbul, pedestrians are very neglected, and I would really focus on that if I was the mayor of Istanbul. And I would, as you said, Shreya, I would test, and very cheaply, tactical measures can really change the world. And you can say to the drivers, we are testing this, and then we can go back to the original situation, and then get everybody to vote. We did that in the Paris region. Everybody voted to get rid of the cars, even though they were their own cars parked. So yes, I think that's really a strong incentive. Test and monitor the testing.
Thank you. Yeah, Shreya.
Sure. I couldn't agree more than what Paul said. You know, I have a mantra which is test, learn, scale. And so start doing something very quickly. So two recent examples, like one in a city called Guwahati in the northeast of India and one in South India, a hilly city called Uti. In less than 1 week, we went from discussion to actually making a change in the heart of the city, like transforming about a kilometer of the street through tactical urbanism, right? Mm-hmm. That's the power of tactical urbanism, that you can actually test it and say, like Paul said, if it doesn't work, we'll take it out. If you think some changes need to be made, please tell us, we'll make those changes. So people feel that they actually have a voice in what the design is going to be. Like when people feel that they have a voice, they come to support it far more rather than when people feel, oh, something else is being done without their knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. To make some of those changes, like, use the opportunity, then learn from it, like, whether it's actually working or not. Through
learn and
measure.
unlearn, in fact.
Learn and unlearn, like, use data. And 3, use the media as your biggest ally. Pump out all this information to the media, saying, like, give out stories, human stories, saying this kid was able to go to school more easily. And not just this kid, thousands of kids are now able to do that. This grandmother who was stuck at home is now able to go around the city and enjoy with her friends. When you start putting out those messages through the media, the idea of what the city is completely changes.
Thank you. Başkan.
Ben de katılıyorum.
I totally agree. And I mean, we cannot just say everyone should be aware of this, and we don't have the luxury of waiting for everyone to come together for a solution. Or we cannot convince car producers to sell more cars. So we, as the local authorities, should come together, and we have to close traffic in pedestrian zones, or we have to ban cars entering city centers. Only these kinds of rules will be valid for us. But in order to do this, people should be willing. Decision makers themselves cannot do this, and people should demand this, and we have to raise awareness in the sense. Let me give you an example. In Istanbul, in city centers, we wanted to make bicycle zones, and we wanted to force this. Making bicycle zones in city centers. We thought it would solve all the problems, but this was a mistake, because we should find more suitable places, like parks, or actually we had to make a bicycle road, and first to create a bicycle community, and that would lead them to demand more. So decision makers should make these kinds of policies, like for pedestrian zones. We should try, test, and they should gradually implement them. Thank you very much. So, as a citizen, we should first demand and test, learn, and scale it. I would like to thank our speakers and try to find them in coffee breaks. Thank you very much for coming here, and you can also check the exhibition outside. Thank you.